Hello there, and welcome back to where we take a look at some of the more off-meta options. And as we enter a new set, everything is off-meta for now. Padme, I do think, has a decent chance of becoming meta. She's most closely compared with Quinlan, and I think in some spots Quinlan will be better, and in others Padme will be better. So let's take a closer look. On her non-deploy side, when you reveal or discard one or more cards from your hand, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, deal 1 damage to a unit. So she is another ping leader, so naturally we pair her with Tarkin Town. And there's a lot of cards, especially in the new set, that enable us to be able to trigger her ability quite easily, but she also makes cards in previous sets quite a bit more effective as well, which we'll get into. And then she comes out on 6, so this is why in some spots Quinlan will be better, because he comes out a turn earlier, and she only gains 1 more HP than Quinlan. And her ability basically remains the same, but you can trigger it an unlimited number of times when she's deployed. So this is a little bit less of an aggressive leader than Quinlan. You're not going to close games out quite as fast, but it's a different style of deck. And then, as I say, of course, I don't need to go over Tarkin Town. We all know what it does. It is a bit of a menace. So all of our early plays, or earlier plays, on the ground at least. So Bail Organa, quite possibly the second best turn 1 play in the deck. Depends if you have initiative or not. If you don't have initiative, then you want faith in your friends. But Bail Organa, so he is a 2/4, which is fast becoming the new default stat line for turn 1s. On attack, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, create a spy token. So on turn 2, you will be able to trigger Padme's ability, create another unit, ping one of theirs, and then Tarkin Town it away if you so desire. So that is what makes him particularly strong with Padme. As you get later in the game, if you've still got Bail out, you're not necessarily going to want to discard a card from your hand all of the time. We do have some smuggle and plot to help us out in that respect if our hand is being depleted, but yeah, quite possibly on turn 2 you will have 3 units out, they'll have 1. So that's the strength of Bail with Padme. I've gone for 1 of Chopper just because I had him and I thought, well, yeah, sure, he can go in. He is extremely aggressive. There are a lot of ping leaders going around, so he is risky. He might be more of a sideboard card if you want to go more aggressive and you're not against a ping leader. When this unit deals combat damage to a base, each player discards a card from their hand, so you are hitting their hand as well. And then, of course, we trigger off of Padme's ability to be able to Tarkin Town something away. Now, faith in your friends. If your opponent has played a unit, this is one of our ways of triggering Padme's ping turn 1. So I've only gone for 2 of them because it is basically, you only really want to play it on turn 1. You don't particularly want to play it later down the line. And it also becomes incredibly hard to play later down the line because of the 5 aspect disclose cost. So search top 3 cards of your deck and draw it. Then you may disclose, so this is the important part, then you may disclose. So if you don't have enough in your hand at the point of playing this to be able to disclose, then you will pick something from the top 3 that will allow you to fulfill that requirement. And then if you do, create 2 spy tokens. So with Padme's ability, we ping something and we create 2 units, which gives us 4 attack power. We then Tarkin Town away whatever they've played. We've got 4 that will be ready next turn, which they may be able to do something about one of them, probably not both. And we're in a pretty good spot. Miggs Mayfeld, so I had my doubts about him, and my doubts are well founded. I think he feels obvious to put in for this deck, but I don't think he works. The issue with him is, when do you play him? He's a terrible turn 1 play, because when you think about it, if you, let's say you don't have the initiative, you play Miggs. Actually, no, even if you do have the initiative, I don't know, I'm getting myself muddled up now, but he's not a good turn 1 play, because then you'll have to play something like R2D2 next turn to be able to trigger him. And then, let's say they've played a 2/4, well, okay, great, you discard a card from their hand, even if you have initiative, then you do 2 damage to their 2/4, they can just run their 2/4 into Miggs, that's now dead, you have 1 resource left, probably can't play anything, they play their 3 cost unit, guess what? You're still behind, and you've used Tarkin down potentially. So Migs doesn't really fit. I think the ideal turn that you would play him is potentially at 4 resources, but as I say, he doesn't really fit into the deck. He seems to only be usable in decks that can discard on turn 1, which is basically both Kylo decks. He might be a sideboard option against space decks. I can see him putting in a decent amount of work, but yeah, he doesn't. I'm really not sold on him. I would probably ditch him entirely. R2D2. So this is another one of our ways of triggering Padme on turn 1, because we can discard a card from our hand and search for top 3 for whatever we want. So we can smooth out what we're doing a little bit. So yeah, R2 is really good. And, you know, he's 2-4. I might be mistaken, but I think he might be the first 2-4 in the game all the way back in Twilight, but forgotten about. Warrior Clan Ordo, so a single aspect 3-3, so that means it comes with a supposed downside. However, with Padme, it is an upside. So on attack, you may disclose red. If you don't, you deal 2 damage to your base. So you're going to hit them for 3, we disclose red, we ping them as well, and this is our turn 2 Tarkin Town potential as well. What I will say is that because faith in your friends is probably more important than the Warrior of Clan Ordo, the deck is more skewed towards being yellow than red, but you shouldn't still have much of a problem. We've got a decent amount of red cards to be able to reliably attack with Clan Ordo. If we were to replace Migs, then it would probably be a red card to keep that ratio relatively safe. Anakin Skywalker, Secret Husband. We all have one. We just don't know about it. He is a 3-4, but he comes in with hidden, so he's not gonna. Well, he's unlikely to be killed straight away. And then when you control Padme as a leader or unit, so that's always going to be the case, then this unit goes raid 2, so hits for 5. Just a turn 2 play that can hit for 5 is always going to be very useful. Cassian, pretty much staple in red hero. Gone for 2 of them because this is a 50 card deck. I think we're going to reliably be able to get to see him in the game, so only gone for 2 of them. You could make a case for 3. And then we come to Merrin, who is a bit nuts with Padme, because yes, it's only a 2-5, but 5 health on a 3 cost is pretty much what you always want. On attack, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, deal 2 damage to a unit. So with Padme, again, you're not going to trigger this every single turn because you do need a hand to be able to play stuff. But with Padme, that turns into potentially 3 damage on 1 unit. So this can be particularly effective against space decks. A lot of the early units have 3 health. Sure, some of the later ones, or turn 2, have 4 health, but we can still whittle that down into attacks. So yeah, Merrin is exceptional value with Padme specifically. Ahsoka, we've got Ahsoka and Kira. It's pretty standard yellow hero at this point, really. Just hand disruption and all that good stuff. I won't really go into it. Plo Koon, so this is where we get into our ambush portion of the deck. So ideally with the Tarkin Town and pings and Merrin, etc., that kind of stuff, we've got the ground arena under control. They play something out, and then we can just Plo Koon it away, and he'll probably survive. There's not exactly many 6-powered units at 5 resources. So yeah, he'll come in, get rid of them, stick around himself, and then the next phase we'll have potentially Depper if we want to ambush something out. And then don't always need Han Solo in this deck, but I wanted to give it a bit more legs if needed. If they were to put down a Sentinel, then he can come down at 7 resources and take that out for our other units to just attack into base. So, and I mean, Depper's Saboteur can be relevant as well. If they have put a Sentinel up, you might be able to snipe something behind it if that's more useful at that point. So yeah, it works pretty well, I would say. Onto space, and I've gone for one of it. I only have one. It might be a full 3 of potentially. It's a more aggressive option than a lot of other space units. Whilst it is only a 3/3, on attack you can disclose hero and or villainy. We don't have any villainy in this deck. I just hiccuped. I don't know if that came through at all. This, if it's hero, this unit gets +2, so it hits for 5, which is pretty damn good in space at that point. So between this and Anakin, we have 2 units that can hit for 5 on turn 2. So very, very useful in that sense. And then, of course, the other space unit we've gone for is Red 5, because with Padme's ability, there's going to be damage units flying around all over the place. So with the on attack, we can just keep pumping that damage up and dealing 2 damage to them. And it can just snipe some things here and there, and it's very, very useful. So onto the wild card, and it's a wild card in the sense that on the night that I was playing this deck in person, I pulled this in the participation pack, and I thought, sure, we can throw this in. We can definitely throw this in and make it a 51 card deck. It doesn't matter. So what does it do? It's a 5 cost, 3/4, so it is very squishy. However, it has raid 4, so it can hit for 7, and they are going to have to do something about it generally, unless they are the aggro deck themselves and are able to potentially outrace you. But when defeated, choose an arena, exhaust each enemy unit in that arena. So if you happen to have the initiative and are able to throw this into a space unit to kill it off, and then you can just exhaust one of your opponent's arenas and keep yours around. So I'm not sure if I would keep it in or not. I think it might be still useful as a one-off at times. But yeah, sometimes just being able to hit in for 7, I think it could be a decent enough counter to some pilot decks in a way, because 7 power can take out a lot of early pilot leader deploys probably. But yeah, I'm not entirely sold on it in this deck in particular, but I am sold on the card in general. Onto our events. So open fire, just some classic removal. Spare the target, similarly, just for a bit of removal. The bounties portion of this card becomes less and less relevant, as the cards they printed back in the day that have bounties attached to them on the units, because they were overpowered or overstatted. Well, you know what? As we approach Legends of the Force set, they're not really that overpowered anymore, because they've buffed the 2 costs as it is. So yeah. Anyway, why this instead of Waylay? Well, because it's yellow hero, so it helps us with our disclose aspects for the likes of Ebon Hawk and Faith in Your Friends, most importantly. So that's a reason for spare the target instead of Waylay. The wrong ride. I think this would be a potential sideboard card rather than a main if you're against the likes of Control, because the wrong ride is not particularly useful against aggro, I would say. You need something else to happen on your leader deploy. I mean, you can play it without plot, of course, but the main usage for it is going to be with plot. But yeah, the wrong ride, exhaust 2 enemy resources, so you can deploy Padme, exhaust 2 of their resources. You've still got 3 left over for the likes of Sudden Ferocity and Hotshot, and they can't Rivals Fall anymore, that kind of stuff. So that was the logic behind it, but I think it would be potentially sideboard rather than the main. And then we come on to the upgrades that I just mentioned. So, all the classics are here, and believe me, Sudden Ferocity is going to be a classic. Hotshot Blaster, so pretty much always play it from Smuggle. Sometimes you'll play it from hand to get a bit more extra value if you have 1 resource left over or want to be pumping up even further. And then Sudden Ferocity, so I've only gone for 2 suddens because Padme deploys in 6, so it's not out of the realm's possibility that you'll have seen both of these in your resources by that point. However, the way I look at it as well is that we don't really need 3 of them, because if we only got 1 in resource row, we can put 1 on Padme, and then in our next action use the hotshot to attack immediately with her, and sure, it's 1 less power, but that's the logic behind this, because we're not generally going to play Sudden Ferocity as a straight 3 cost upgrade from hand. There might be some very niche cases where you do that, but yeah, that's the logic between only 2 of them. And then let's go into the missing pieces. So Karis Nemik. Actually, this is probably what would replace Migs, because it'll be so much better. It's a 3/2, so not amazing stats for 2 cost these days, but he comes in hidden, so he can't be ambushed straight away. And when defeated, you may disclose Red Hero, so that will trigger Padme's ability. And if you do, create a spy token and ready it. So potentially you depending on what the opponents got out on their side, you could run Karrde into one of their units. Probably not, because there you need to deal with him. Really, you're more likely to be the aggressor in a lot of games. Ping something away. If it's a full health unit, then he can actually kill them himself with Padme's ping as well. And then you still have a spy token left over, which is ready, so you can still get 2 damage into base anyway. So yeah, Karrde Nemik would be a amazing addition for this deck. I just need to actually get any of him. And then Poe Dameron, I've never had any of him. I have to borrow them for PQs and the like. But with the his on attack of discarding cards from your hand, well, the deal 2 damage to a unit or base suddenly becomes potentially 2 to a base and 1 to a unit, or 3 to a unit. So a bit like Merrin, it just stacks up and up and up. And yeah, just very, he was already good as it was, let alone with an extra 1 damage ping from Padme. So in terms of other options, I'm going to limit how many I look at these days, because we now have 6 sets. We know all of the good stuff from previous sets. I will say, I've not included the likes of Spark of Rebellion and all that stuff. So I think I will limit it to what the current set is going forwards. I will always miss something, but Moral Authority was something I did have a look at. I think if it was a 2 cost, it probably would make it in, because on Padme's deploy, what am I talking about? Padme deploys on 6, so this would fit. Anyway, I can't count. But attached to a friendly unique unit, so that will include your leader, of course. When played, attached unit captures an enemy non-leader unit with less remaining HP than it. So we've got a lot of unique units. Just having a look. What unique units have we got? We've got tons. So most of our turn 1s are unique. All of these are unique. All of these are unique. And the Lightmaker is unique. Not that you're going to use it on the Lightmaker. So yeah, highly likely to be able to trigger the effect. But the main thought process behind it is Padme is an 8 health leader. If this had plot, it would be amazing. Possibly broken as well. But she's an 8 health leader, which is above what you would normally expect. You normally get 7 health. So it makes her 5/8, and she captures something as well. So perhaps they've got a sentinel on the ground. Most sentinels at that point, I can't think of any that would have even 7. There's probably one that has 7 health, but there's definitely not going to be any that have 8 health without being upgraded. So that was kind of a thought process as to this could be a good option to screw them over at that point. Even the Captain Rex new unit, that's a 7/7 that gives Sentinel to itself and something else on our side. Well, Padme would even be able to capture him, which would be a pretty massive blowout for your opponent. So I do want to look at this a bit more. Blu-ray, so this is just for space decks, really. The on attack is not actually going to be necessarily that relevant. So if your opponent has attacked with a unit that you want to ambush into, well, then you use the on attack on what you're about to kill. So yeah, I think in a lot of situations the on attack isn't actually going to be relevant. And if it is around for you to hit into base with, well, you can just attack with it before they have exhausted units. Therefore, it doesn't matter. So yeah, I think the downside on this is a little bit misleading. I don't think it's actually much of a downside at all. Charged for treason, you will need to skew more closely to red for this, but if you disclose double red, you deal 5 damage to a unit. Well, guess what, with Padme, that is actually 6 damage, and 6 damage is a different threshold to 5. 5 will kill most 3 and 4 resource plays. 6 damage will kill most 5 resource plays. That is the key difference with Padme. So I think if you go with a more red list, then Charge for Treason would definitely be a great option. And then Kazuda, I would see this more of a sideboard option as well. He is a 4-cost 2/6 with Raid 2, so he's actually hits for 4. So, 6 health on a 4-cost unit is very good. I can't think of many others that have it. I think there's Nima Outpost Constables, Lon Pike, who's just crazy with 4/6. Elia Kane now as well. Anyway, who cares about all that? while you control fewer resources of an opponent, this unit gets +2/+0, so he can hit for 6. So again, this would be sideboard if you're against anything that ramps, like, well, just green, obviously, but the likes of, I guess, Piet, Palpatine, hand 1 as well. They will temporarily have more resources than you, so if they use his ability, then they're actually going to pump Kaz up, and he'll hit for 6. And a 4-cost that can hit for 6, just natively, without any kind of pump, and by pump I mean without having to play another card to do so, that's pretty damn good. So yeah, these are the ones that have most caught my eye from the new set at the moment that could potentially fit in nicely. So that is the deck. As I say, it's quite aggressive. It can be quite disruptive, but it's the ping value. What I will say is if you don't happen to draw your disclose and discard stuff, you're probably not going to have a very good time, because you're just playing a deck without an ability, which on a 6 deploy leader is just not good enough. But yeah, I had my eye on her for quite a long time. She is a potential for what I'll take to a PQ. It wouldn't be this exact version, but something similar to it. But yeah, she's got very good potential. Unfortunately, she is probably going to have just this set of potential, because without Tarkintown, when rotation hits, she's going to be a hell of a lot worse. I suspect green would be the way to go with her, but yeah, it's not going to be a good time for her. She has this one opportunity to shine in the sun, and then I think she may just disappear. But anyway, what's next on the docket? Quite possibly Satine, blue-green. I do have 2 versions of her, so I'll probably play one and then just throw the other one as a bonus within there. One's force-based and one is not. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and take care. I had a brain fart.